So there were a ton of really great games that came out this year, and in particular, there were some very promising ones that are unfortunately not out yet. Early access has come a long way, and there are more reputable developers and publishers involved in the program now, but it still isn't a guarantee that even reputable parties involved won't run off with your money and leave you with an unfinished pile of crap. So here's a list of games I can actually recommend you go out and buy. We'll be ranking them based on how much I enjoyed them, not by completeness, so bear that in mind as we get closer to my top picks. Number 5, Little Witch in the Woods. I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to put a story-driven early access game on the list, and I was also kind of running out of games to put here, but I did really enjoy the writing when I covered it, so screw it, it gets the list. This is a very simplistic crafting game, but with fun characters, an interesting world, a gorgeous art style, and some very nice music. As I've said, it just barely squeaks to number 5 because there are a number of titles that do what Little Witch in the Woods does, but better in terms of gameplay, and they aren't in early access either, but its story content stands out enough that I can squeak it to number 5 on the list. There have been plenty of updates since I last played, that being primarily bug fixes, but there has been a few beta tests for the new functionality, the new feature set. There's going to be a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of overhauls coming into the game that you can now test. So development is doing pretty well. The development has gone kind of quiet as of late November, but hopefully we'll see a little bit more in the new year. Number 4, Songs of Conquest. Now, I was a little wrong regarding the combat in my original video for this game. I claimed that the combat needed more variation as it felt very monotonous, and a numbers game at that, with limited tactics, and the magic system should have fixed that, but it didn't. And I still believe that, but mainly for the campaign. From what I've recently played of skirmish games, and what I've seen online, you can do some pretty crazy stuff, but unfortunately that was not my experience because I primarily played the campaign when I covered this title. So the magic system didn't hit its stride when I was playing the narrative-driven element, which is what I'm really interested in. That being said, this is still a very fun take on Heroes of Might and Magic, and it plays a lot better in many ways than those old games did. A turn-based strategy RPG featuring hero units that can cast spells and command large armies. The developers have been hard at work on updates such as adding new game modes and improving the map editor, but for now we're still unfortunately stuck with the same 2 campaigns we've had since launch. We're still missing 2 more. I do hope the combat is continuously developed a bit more and we get those 2 campaigns, but it seems like the game is mostly on the right track for getting the skeleton down and having some worthwhile content. And even though I didn't enjoy the combat that much, that didn't stop me from putting almost 10 hours into the game. It was still fun. Lava Potion Games has a pretty good publisher backing them, so I have confidence that they'll continue delivering something fun and polished. Number 3, Gloomwood. This is an incredibly tense stealth game reminiscent of the old Thief titles. It's not what I call an immersive sim like those games were once considered, but it's a really solid stealth game with some great atmosphere and killer sound design. After I covered the game, they released the Blood Moon update, which is a new, much harder difficulty option, and they also released a new area called the Tavern. I really enjoy the tension and the fact that the game doesn't fuck around with difficulty. There is no quick save, so threats are a lot more tense in that you can lose progress, which does work, but is also kind of frustrating. I hope that the level design gets a little better as the game continues getting updates. Having to run back to save after every milestone is a little annoying, even though a level can have shortcuts to get back to that save point. But the game looks to be coming along pretty nicely, and it's pretty unique, so I had a fun time with it. Worth checking out. Number 2, Turbo Overkill. There's not much to say about this one. It's a fun boomer shooter, has great momentum, and the shooting mechanics are solid as is the soundtrack. It's hard to stand out in a sea of these games, and Turbo Overkill is able to not fall into obscurity. It's got really fun combat mechanics that involve chainsaw sliding into people and having some very over-the-top weapons. Episode 2 just got released in November, so the game's update progress has been on track, so that's great. Again, I don't have much to say because this genre is quite saturated, and this is pretty much another good one to add to it. I do worry about burnout for the boomer shooter, but I'm cool with this one. And finally, at number 1, we have EX-Zodiac. This is a game emulating the look of Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, but with the gameplay of Star Fox on the Nintendo 64. And it's pretty damn good. Unfortunately, there hasn't been much added in terms of content since I covered the game, but there has been a lot of work done on the back end. For starters, the game finally adds mouse support, and it works really well, so you can play the game without a pad now, which is really cool. Steam Cloud is there, as well as a bunch of other fixes and new language options. Sadly, there's no new levels, the game is just as long as it was before, which is about an hour. What's there is really, really fun, but it still lacks that replayability that Star Fox 64 was known for. There is some stage variety, but part of that is the space area levels, and the other part is a single ground segment. It's all still on rails and linear, so none of these other levels and mission types from Star Fox, like Katina, Frontline Base, Reunion, and there's currently no stage hazard themed levels like Solar. Actually, little update right here. New levels are going to have an all-range mode, so it's going to have that variety that I've been asking for, which is awesome. There we go. There's also little in terms of story detail right now, and it doesn't really have a compelling narrative. There's no rival Star Fox enemy or strong main character motivation like the original had. It might seem like I'm being hard on the game, but what puts it at number 1 on my list is that it nails everything that they've implemented so far. The controls, gameplay, music, and sound are all top-notch. Even though you can beat it in an hour, it's one of the best damn hours I've played all year. The combat is just such a perfect amalgamation of intense space combat. Everything is just so easy to hop into being an arcade-like game with its short levels and pick up and play controls. But it has enough depth to get you to replay levels even if there is no narrative or gameplay benefit like the original. You just play them again because they're fun. Hopefully the developer can get more content out. I know the original Star Fox 64 was also quite short, but its replayability helped it become a classic. I'm still waiting on those branching paths for this one, and I hope the developer can pull through and capitalize on something truly special here. Lord knows Nintendo ain't doing anything like that with Star Fox anymore. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. We'll be checking out the top 5 best and worst games of 2022, so stay tuned for that. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. I'm out. But it has enough depth to keep. But it has enough depth to keep you. But it has enough depth to get you to replay levels, even if there's no narrative or gameplay benefit. But it has enough depth. But it has enough depth. But it has enough. But it has enough depth to get you to replay levels.